What's up, guys? It's Taylor. Welcome back to The Blueprint, a channel in which we talk about software engineering topics, and sometimes I build things. Sometimes. But not today. Today is actually a very special day. It marks the start of our brand new series, Good, Better, Best, which is going to be a series here on this channel in which I'm going to show you how to solve common whiteboarding questions step by step in a way that's super easy, informative, and fun. So each video is going to feature a different topic, and each topic is going to be at a different level. So for example, it might be a string beginner video or a linked list hard video, etc., etc. If it doesn't really make sense right now, don't worry, as this video series goes on, it'll make a lot more sense. I went ahead and did you guys a favor, and I put the timestamps below in the description box for you, so you can skip ahead to the different parts of the video if you want to. However, I will warn you that if you decide to use those, that you might miss some key explanations. So a little buyer beware, if you will. So let's get into the video. So this video is actually going to be about strings, and we're going to solve two questions. We're going to solve how to reverse a string and how to determine if a string is a palindrome. Both of these questions I would say are at a beginner level, and they're definitely two common whiteboarding problems that you'll come across. But before we actually jump into solving this problem, there are three concepts that you need to understand for the solutions to make sense. You need to understand for loops, you need to know a little bit about strings, and you need to understand string mutability. Now, I won't be going over for loops in this video. I'm actually going to create an entirely different series about programming concepts, but I will explain strings and string mutability. Let's talk about strings. Strings are actually objects. They are not a primitive data type like an integer or a Boolean. Strings are actually a char array stored in memory. Because of this special characteristics, strings are actually immutable. So to possess mutability means that you possess the ability to change. Therefore, because strings are immutable, they cannot be changed. So this creates a little bit of a tricky situation sometimes when we're trying to manipulate strings or perform logical operations on it. These two questions that I have chosen for you will help you see how you can operate on strings and how you can use them in your own logical solution. There are several ways to reverse a string, and in this video, I'm going to show you three different ways. To be honest, the runtime of all three of these solutions is about the same, as well as the amount of memory that you use. So in this particular problem, there is no good, better, or best way to solve this, in my opinion. Feel free to disagree, and let's have a discussion in the comments below. The very first solution that I'm going to show you is going to be utilizing a for loop and the char add method. So the char add method is a built-in method within Java in which you supply the method with the index that you would like to receive the character of. So to make this a little bit simpler, if you have the word dog, D-O-G, if you want to retrieve the O, you would just simply supply the char add method with the number 1, and that with the O out of the word dog. We're utilizing this method to solve this problem in reversing the array. So essentially what we're going to do is iterate over the string, working backwards, getting the char at the end and putting it actually at the beginning of a string. In this method, we're going to be creating a new string every time, and you're going to see us add to that string. So let's see the code for this. The next thing we're going to do here is to create an empty string to hold the result of the reversal. Now we need to grab the length of the string, and we're going to use the dot length method, which is also a method that is built in within Java. So something important to note about the length method is it actually gives you the number of elements within the string. So for example, for DOG, if you use the dot length method on that string, it's going to give you the number 3. However, the indexes of DOG are actually 0, 1, and 2. So you'll notice in this for loop that I'm writing that I write length minus 1. That is the reason. If I just wrote length, the string would, if I just wrote length, the array would go for 0, 1, 2, and 3, and then our char add method would actually fail because there is no char in the 4th position. The other thing to note is that you want I to be greater than or equal to 0, and the reason for that is we actually do want the first value in the string because we're iterating backwards. So we have the G, the O, and the D. The D is actually at the 0th position, and so we want to actually evaluate the 0th position, which means you must have greater than or equal to. So now you'll see in the body of the for loop, I'm actually overriding the result string with the result string plus the char add. This is the actual building mechanism for results process. And that's pretty much the entire code. We're simply going to return our final result string. So let's test it and see if this actually works. I'm going to create a string called teststring1 and give it the string apple. I'm going to print out on the console the result of the call to reverse string 1. Let's see if we actually get apple reversed. And we do. So it looks like solution 1 works. So now let's move into solution. I'm going to go ahead and interject here that I actually personally feel like out of the 3 solutions, that this is the worst solution because we're actually creating a new string every time. So the second solution is actually going to be using the string builder class. And this solution is not going to look too different from our very first solution. So we're following the same protocol of getting the length of the string. Now we're actually instantiating a new string builder object. Now the string builder object is a really interesting object because, like it says, it allows you to build strings, and so it has some different functionalities than just a normal string object. So we're going to actually write the exact same for loop conditions at the top. So you'll notice that we've actually combined the char at method and the append method in the for loop body. So the dot append method takes a character, and so you need to provide it. So the dot append method takes a character. In order to get a character, we are using the char at method. So inside of the char at method, we're providing the index of the character that we want to receive and passing that character to the append call. That way that character can be added to our string builder object. All that's left for us to do now is to create a string that's going to store the results of the reversal process. We are going to create a string. However, we do need to invoke the .toString method, and many objects have this built in already. So essentially what this is doing is converting the string builder object into a string object. Now, depending on your interview question, this may or may not be a big deal. However, the return type for this method that I wrote is a string, and if I try to return SB, you will get an error. This is because your program is expecting you to return a string and you are returning a string builder object. Now all that's left to do is actually return this value. So let's test this out. Create another string and I'm going to put in the word happy. And it looks like it works. So the third solution is also utilizing a string builder object, but you can also do this with a string buffer object. I won't get into too many details about the difference between a string builder object and a string buffer object. I feel like it's a little bit more of an intermediate topic, and to be honest, the differences don't really matter as much depending on the type of program that you're running. However, I will leave some links down below if you are curious. Now, this one, I'm going to be really honest. In an interview, this solution might not fly just because it's so dead simple. However, I'm going to show it to you anyway. So we're not going to create any for loops or anything at all. All we're going to do is create a new string builder object, and then we're going to invoke the reverse method. Yes, inside of the string builder object, there is a method called reverse, which actually just reverses the entire thing for you. So all we have to do is create a new string to store the result of the reversal of the string and then return that string. And like all good programmers, we're actually going to test our code. So let's create a final string with the value of banana. And it looks like it works. Like I said, I don't particularly feel like one of those solutions was better than the other one, but sometimes it's like that depending on the question. There isn't a very obvious answer as to which is the best way to solve it. But With that being said, we're going to move into our second problem, which is how to tell if a string is a palindrome. So before I get into the solution of this, I think I should explain to you what a palindrome is. According to Webster, palindrome is actually a word or a sentence that is spelled the exact same way forward and the exact same way backwards. That might not make a lot of sense. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's take the word race car. Race car is spelled R-A-C-E-C-A-R. Race car. Now if we go from the back, spell race car backwards. It's actually R-A-C-E-C-A-R. Race car. It's the same forward and backwards. So the question is how to check if a string is a palindrome. What I'm about to show you is actually a concept that's really important in programming, which is not rewriting the same code twice. So because I have three lovely methods that already reverse a string for me, I'm not going to write a new method. I'm simply just going to make a call to one of the methods. And that's what I'm doing here. And I'm storing the result of that method call into a new string called reverse. So I do want to illustrate one final concept to you here. If you are familiar with programming, you might be considering using two equal signs to compare strings, because that's what you do if you want to compare numbers or booleans, integers, or things like that. However, I must stop you. String comparison is a little bit different because strings are objects. Because strings are objects, if you ask Java to compare two objects, it actually compares the location in memory of the two objects. So let's say you have banana and you have apple. It's actually not comparing the two strings, banana and apple. It's actually comparing the location of banana and apple, which is not going to be in the same place. Apple could be over here, banana is over here. And so you'll always get false, even if in fact you are comparing apples to apples or bananas to bananas. So there's actually a special method, which is the dot equals method that you're going to use to compare to. There's actually a special method you're going to use, which is the dot equals method. And that method allows you to compare two strings. All you have to do is call it on one string and compare it to another. All you have to do is call it from one string and put your second string in as a parameter, and it will return either a true or a false value if they are indeed the same or not the same. And so finally, as always, we must test and make sure that our method works. So let's first test on something that we know is a palindrome, race car. And indeed, it works. So let's go ahead and test it on something that we know is not a palindrome. False. It looks like our solutions work. And just like that, we solved two classic whiteboarding questions: how to reverse a string and how to tell if a string is a palindrome. So I hope that you found the explanations really clear and that you learned something. Well, I guess you must have liked the video because you're still here. And if you did, you're in luck, because like I said earlier, that this is going to be a series here on the channel. So there's going to be tons of videos related to all different types of topics. And so, feel free to click a link, in the card or in the description box below, of the next video in this series. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone.